Hey guys, RJ here, and after that excellent showing in week 2 of Big Little Lies on HBO, I knew there were some things that we have to talk about. I actually have a theory to kind of throw into this review as well, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our episode 2 review. So, guys, as with all my reviews, if you have not seen episode 2 of Big Little Lies on HBO, please turn this off, go watch it, come back, and then watch this review. There are spoilers ahead, and I don't want to ruin this show. So, being that aside, let's go ahead and dig into this. I thought there were some really interesting character development things within this episode. I think one of my funniest moments by far is the principal talking about each of the parents, where he says, they're helicopter parents or whatever, but in reality, they end up being kamikaze parents. And I love that line. That was a great line because, can you even imagine trying to be a principal of a school with power moms like this? Okay, these women are used to getting their way. They're used to being in control. They we're talking about their kids. So this is like, you don't screw with them. So being a principal and dealing with all of these, like alpha male or alpha female moms, it's got to be a difficult job. And I just love that he ends up pulling a cigarette out of his desk drawer and he heavy sighs. And I really like him in the interviews as well that the sheriff is interviewing for this. So I really like him as a character. I think he has some good comedic balance there and kind of like a dose of reality for us as the viewer. And so I found that interesting. That was a good funny bit. But there's a lot of dark stuff in this episode, and I think we kind of got to dive into the main stuff here, and that is Celeste and Perry Wright. It's just not cool. Like you can't do those things. I don't care what type of relationship you have. I don't care if you have kids. I don't care if you're married. You cannot hit your partner like this. You cannot, basically he has severe anger issues. That's pretty apparent. I don't know, and I'm not going to basically theorize on this part yet, but I don't know if she's egging him on in certain instances because it seems like HBO is trying to get us to think one way when it's in reality another. So I think that it could end up switching. Maybe she's been egging him on this whole time, and they're trying to make her out to be this innocent one, and she ends up being really guilty in the end. So I've seen Gone Girl. I don't trust any of these characters yet. So there's still that trust to be built with me on the character front. And I mean, obviously, what he did is terrible. I 100% agree, and he's an evil person so far in this story. Do not deny that. You do not do that to your partner, wife, whatever. It's uncalled for, and it definitely made me cringe, physically throughout this episode. There were a few times that I cringed, and this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to watch on TV. It was reminiscent of the Game of Thrones Sansa rape scene, and it was not a great time for me. So moving on from that, let's stay on that. Let's finish that thought with Celeste and her husband. The end scene where because they have this bathroom scene where he's asking for Skype sex or whatever, and she's washing her face, and he's basically in bed or whatever halfway across the world, and so she kind of starts giving in, and then she's in the mirror, he's sitting up on the mantle, and she's showing into the mirror or whatever, and you see the bruise that she has from him right there, and then she immediately recoils after she sees it in the mirror, and that scene ends. God, I'm getting worked up talking about this. So that scene ends, but then at the end of the episode she ends up giving it to him anyway. So I don't know. I mean, she's clearly screwed up at this point, at least a little bit. He's totally screwed up. I mean, that's without doubt, I think, at this point. But their relationship is definitely very interesting, and I don't like that. And obviously, Celeste didn't give Madeline all of the details because she's kind of ashamed of it, from what it seems. But I really didn't like that Madeline kind of made that joke about that, oh, that sounds hot or whatever. She doesn't know everything, so obviously that's taken out of context. But did irk me a little bit. Moving on, the Madeline stuff this episode, she brings a sense of both humor and seriousness with her. She's a very funny mom. She's very in your face, very planning, very has every step counted out for you. And okay, so guys, I'm a child of divorced parents, okay? So I know that there are difficulties with managing children and who splits who, but I gotta say, the Bonnie versus Madeline and then the Nathan versus Ed thing this episode, that was some really juicy stuff. I thought both of those scenes were fantastic. So the main drama here is that Madeline's daughter ends up going with Bonnie. They go to Planned Parenthood, get pregnancy pills. or birth control, sorry. And yeah, and I mean, I don't really think that was that interesting of a point. I think that there's a lot of things facing teenagers today that, kind of more impact us than just, being on birth control and stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of a nuanced argument. But that aside, that ends up being, the main issue is that Madeline says, at least you should have called me. Like, you should have told me, and, before you decide or help my daughter decide these things that are not your decision. And yeah, it's a very tricky balance. Luckily, my parents got along great after the divorce. There was no fighting like this. But I mean, I know that there is the exact opposite in the spectrum too. And I would say these guys are more on the good end, but they definitely have some bad blood going on between Bonnie and Madeline. And we end up seeing that there's actually some bad blood going on between Ed and Nathan. Adam Scott, I'm going to say he is the MVP of this episode acting wise. He absolutely nailed the conversation that he has with Madeline saying, am I the one? Is Nathan the one? Are you still obsessed with him? Is this actually like, are you for real right now? I'm in love with you. You're my one. And that whole speech was like delivered perfectly. And then you go on and you move on to Nathan, the speech that he gives with Nathan about bullies and how he was bullied as a kid. And it's kind of weird because like Nathan makes fun of him as he rides up because he's got like a mirror on his helmet, which if you've biked before, I mean, that he says it's standard equipment and stuff, like especially in a crowded area. I totally understand why he was doing that. But point is, Nathan, he's trying to like pick at him a little bit because he makes fun of him being like the stay-at-home dad, and he cooks and cleans as if those are bad things for any husband or wife or whatever. I've never understood like the gender role thing. So but yeah, so he ends up trying to make fun of him, and I love that Ed ends up like basically he gets a spine like out of nowhere. I mean, we've only known this character for one episode, right? 1 hour of TV, but throughout that first hour, I just thought he was a giant pussy. But basically, he ends up just like laying the smackdown on Nathan. He's like, "Yo, look, I might cook, I might clean, I might be extremely kind and friendly to the people that I care about. That doesn't mean I'm not going to kick your ass, because I should have kicked some bully's ass back in high school or middle school or whatever, and I didn't. And I told myself if I ever had that chance again, I would. And God, I'm really excited for hopefully Ed eventually throws a punch at him. I would absolutely love that because I'm team Edward all the way. Okay, guys, team Edward. So yeah, I thought that was a really good back and forth between both sides of that couple, because like HBO was leading us to believe that it would only be the women that were fighting in this relationship, but we end up getting the dudes kind of hitting a alpha male head-to-head type thing. So that was fantastic. And I also want to hit on the child acting. Because that obviously is going to be a pretty big part of the show going forward, because there's so much involved with the moms and the kids. And these kids have done amazing. Ziggy, Claire, everyone in the classroom and stuff, the teachers and stuff, even in the background, they're absolutely amazing. They're giving these kids, I know that it's not that many lines and stuff like that, like physically, but there is a big difference between Anakin Skywalker acting in episode 1 of Star Wars and this type of acting where kids are actually putting out real emotions, real faces. Yeah, so they're doing a great job. The director, I'm sure, helped with this, but yeah, they did some great cuts, and the kid acting is actually really good, which makes this show all the better. So moving on from there, here's my theory, okay? Pretty much, I think that it's not a coincidence. So after the big fight between Madeline and Renita Klein over the Annabelle party thing, pretty much we get this scene where Celeste goes home and it's really dark, and she's driving home in her car, and she comes into the house and the house is kind of dark, and then her husband's roses are waiting there for her, and that's still kind of dark because he like beat her like 12 hours previously. And then she ends up, they talk to the nanny for a second. She goes into the bedroom and she's having a normal conversation with her boys and trying to get them to bed and stuff. But we end up finding out that Mr. Hippo, Harry Hippo, I believe, ends up getting his leg missing. And I'm like, hey, that's a little strange, don't you think? And I kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute, are these the kids that actually hurt Annabelle? Is one of them actually the problem? And is he getting it from the stuff that he's watching his parents do? Are one of the right boys one of the ones that hurt Annabelle Klein? And did they get that type of imagery, that type of action towards another girl or a human being from their mom and dad? I mean, that it kind of like fell into place for me in my mind. I was like, holy crap. Like, I think they're just pushing the Ziggy thing way too hard. They're making him like have weird camera shots and stuff behind like a pillar, watching his mom as she cries and stuff. And yeah, I think they're trying to push that to be way too obvious. And obviously I have no idea who the person that dies or the person that might have done it yet. We just don't have enough info on that. I mean, you know, we're building up this drama and stuff, but you can't really guess like 50 turns in the future. It's really hard at this point in the show. So this is my theory. I am like 95% sure it was one of the Wright boys that actually hurt Annabelle. It was not Ziggy Chapman. I just don't think that it was him. He seems like a good-natured kid. I definitely have some questions about Jane. We keep getting this flashback. In this episode, we actually saw her, like, it looked like a shooting range or maybe a empty street or something in the dark. But basically, it looked like Shailene Woodley shot some dude. And then obviously we get flashbacks of the blue dress and the girl that is in the blue dress. Still not really sure what happened with that. I think there's a lot of questions to answer there, and it might end up like kind of giving us an idea if she's one of the ones that's kind of in question as being the murderer. But yeah, there's a lot of questions for these characters in the back. We get a lot of insight. We've already had a lot of insight into Celeste and Madeline, right, and their families. I think it's eventually over the next probably 3 or 4 episodes, we're going to get a lot of backstory for the Chapman family and some of the other supporting cast on the show to kind of add, you know, that like well-rounded feel to it. So I am really looking forward to what they have in the future. And, you know, there's a lot of options that they can go down. And another funny moment that I actually want to hit on is at the beginning when the gay guy, one of the gay couples, one of the dudes was like, would I bang Celeste or Perry? And he says, I'd probably bang either. I can't blame him there. They're both very attractive. Good job for Skarsgård or whatever. Plus to him. But point is, they do a great job of mixing up the funny and the serious in this show. Because you get all this funny points from like the interviews and stuff. And then you go back to reality and you see some of these events happening. And you're like, yeah, okay, this is how gossip starts and stuff. But it definitely gets really serious at times. And yeah, like the whole Celeste thing, that made me like sit back in my seat, cringeworthy. So I got to give HBO credit on that. And the other 2 things that obviously I'm going to hit on, the audio and the visuals. I mean, I'm not normally interested in these types of shows, guys. Okay, I'm really not. But it is so beautifully shot, directed, whatever. The sound quality is just amazing. The lyrical songs that they're choosing for this show, like in this episode, we have the B-52s, Dance This Mess Around, and we had the Talking Heads, Take Me to the River. Those were 2 excellent songs, and they played at perfect times. And I love that Claire's the MVP of this show, absolutely 100%. I mean, Adam Scott won the acting award, but in terms of plot story, Claire is by far Claire McKenzie is like the goddess of this show. She, as a little kid, she has more respect coming from me than like most of the other adults in this show. So she's a great kid. She just wants to help everyone out, just like kind of her mom does, getting in everyone's business a little bit, but she does it in an adorable way, and she has a great taste in music, apparently. She like DJs everything, and I really like that because they like keep showing her like turning the music up and down and stuff, and they do a really good job of mixing that kind of thing in. So yeah, the audio for this, I mean, hands down amazing. And then we get, of course, more great shots of this landscape all around, these bridges, the water, the beaches that they're on, the crazy, amazing houses that these people live in. And yeah, HBO, keep it up. I can't even knock you for a single thing when it comes to cinematography, audio, video, whatever. You were on point, and yeah, just keep it up from here. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I actually really enjoy doing the reviews of this show. There's a lot of good drama there, and it's shot and directed so well that like I can't look away when most of these shows like this I would. So props to HBO for once again enticing me. If you found this review interesting, like this video, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. If you hated it, dislike this video, still subscribe to us to hate us even more, I suppose. Comment down below. What are your theories? Do you think I'm spot on with the 2 Wright boys being the ones that actually hurt Annabelle Klein? If not, tell me I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just totally off base here, but let me know your thoughts down below, and also start talking to us on social media. All of those links are down in the video description. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.